Tonight, Saskatchewan's ombudsman criticizes the province's response to the recent wildfires. The owner of the historic Robertson Trading Store reflects on losing the long-standing Air Ronge landmark. Plus, smoke is blanketing the province. We will update you on how long it will last.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Tuesday, June 10th, and welcome to the CBC Saskatchewan News. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Plaster. Thanks for joining us. In a rare move, the province's ombudsman called a news conference today criticizing the province's response to the ongoing wildfire evacuations in the north. Alexander Kwan reports.
Ombudsman Sharon Pratchler says the province has failed to adequately communicate with evacuees and provide them with support. But she stressed her objective is not to shame the government.
Our goal is improvement in the response, not admonishment.
The Ombudsman's office normally reviews incidents after they happen, but Tuesday was one of the rare times the Ombudsman addressed an ongoing incident.
Words that should not be used right now by any government or public entity. We are working on it. The time for working on it has passed. An immediate response is required.
Pratchler grew visibly emotional during the news conference as she shared how her staff of 30 people have had to operate a 24/7 assistance line on their own. She said her office has received so many complaints in such a short period of time that they haven't been able to accurately count the number of complaints they've received. Pratchler issued 14 calls for action, including better staffing, clearer messaging, and more transparency, including answers as to why some evacuees have been able to access funding while others haven't. The official opposition says Pratchler's concerns echo what they've heard from evacuees, and while they want answers, they also want immediate action.
There will be absolutely a time to look at what went wrong, but our focus right now needs to be getting the services to people where and when they need them.
The provincial government says it's heard the concerns and is actively looking to address them.
And we are doing our best. We have brought in extra resources to deal with that backlog, and we are going to get those resources out the door as quickly and effectively as possible.
Premier Scott Moe will speak with media about Pratchler's recommendations on Wednesday, while Pratchler has promised a wide-ranging investigation once the fires die down. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Some local leaders say the response was smoother in 2015 when the Red Cross was responsible for all evacuees. This time around, people say they're receiving confusing messages about where to go and who to speak with. As Jeremy Warren reports, that confusion is making a bad situation even worse for one woman who's now homeless.
Chantel Morin and her family have been living in a camper trailer in Prince Albert since fleeing their home in Denair Beach last month. The wildfire destroyed a large swath of the village of Denair Beach and the nearby Denair Beach Reserve.
To lose 3/4 of your community and for everybody to be displaced throughout. Like we have no homes to go to when we are able to go home. There's lots of us that have no homes to go home to.
Morin is from Peter Ballantine Cree Nation, and the Red Cross is the designated support service to help evacuees from Peter Ballantine Cree Nation and Lac La Ronge Indian Band communities. Anyone else can contact the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. It's also offering financial support. The head of the household gets $40 per day, with additional family members getting $20 to a maximum of $200 per day. But evacuees say there's been a lot of confusion and runaround from support agencies. Morin is receiving some financial assistance from her band, but says it's not enough.
Right now, we're using our savings, like to get the things that aren't being donated to the PPA Exhibition Center. Those other necessities we're spending out of pocket.
So far this year, wildfires have forced the evacuation of 36 communities, and while healthy adults from Pelican Narrows are now allowed to return home, that's not an option for Morin.
We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're just going day by day since last Saturday. We're not sure. Like, we don't know when we can go home. We don't know when we can go through what's, if anything, is left.
Evacuees say better communication from the province and other officials might help ease the trauma. People just want to know when they can leave their temporary shelters and start rebuilding their lives. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
There is some good news for some evacuees. Thousands who fled Air Ronge area will be allowed to go home starting Thursday. The Air Ronge Indian Band says mandatory evacuation orders will be lifted that morning for Hall Lake, Sucker River, Air Ronge Reserve, and Stanley Mission. A phased return will begin Thursday, with the full community expected to return throughout the weekend, depending on available transportation. The village of Air Ronge has also confirmed that its residents can return starting Thursday, although the mayor recommends waiting a day or two if you can. And the town of Air Ronge will soon welcome people back. A roadblock on the south side of the community will be removed by 8 a.m. on Thursday. The former owner of Robertson Trading in Air Ronge is grieving the loss of his iconic general store. It went up in flames last week as the wildfires closed in on the town. But that wasn't Scott Robertson's only property affected by the fires. He was also racing to save his family's cabin.
Anybody in their right mind facing flames like this has got to have an exit plan first and foremost. My brother spent a whole day and that night fighting a fire to save my family cottage. A heroic effort on his part. Had he not been there, we would have lost that too. We tried to save another guy's cabin the other day.
Well, nice try, boys.
We were just a half hour too late, I think, for saving that cabin. It went up in a ball of flames. We spent yesterday putting out spot fires at my cabin and putting sprinkler systems up at a friend's cabin. The store is a total loss. I mean, it burned like a tiger torch for 5 hours. I've walked around the perimeter. There's not even a piece of wood showing. It is just a fireball. How that could have burned so hot, I don't know. But I feel everything. I feel anger. I feel sadness. I feel frustration. I feel regret. I mean, you feel it all. How would anybody feel? My family has had that business for almost 6 decades. I'm 67 now. I don't have the time left to rebuild Robertson Trading. The fact that that artwork is gone is really a loss, not just for me and my family, but for the community. We hoarded that stuff for decades. I always had this dream that one day we would have some kind of a museum/art gallery in Air Ronge, and we would have a first-class display of Aboriginal, Indigenous beadwork and artwork. We would still buy and sell raw animal skins that we bought from the Indigenous community. We would also buy and sell beadwork, moose hides, moose hide jackets, birch bark bindings, and I don't think it's replaceable.
2 new drop-in centers for people experiencing homelessness will soon open in Saskatoon, one for youth and one for adults. The provincial government, the City of Saskatoon, and Saskatoon Tribal Council are partnering to launch the new services.
STC provides Indigenous-led, culturally reflective services founded on their ability to build meaningful relationships and trusting bonds with individuals, families, and young people that are experiencing homelessness.
Really making sure that we're working on mental health, the addictions piece, really trying to help people navigate so they're not homeless.
A daytime drop-in center here at Station 20 West intends to offer a safe space and support services for people. And an overnight youth drop-in center at the nearby White Buffalo Youth Lodge will serve youth 16 and older with access to food, showers, and laundry. Both centers are set to open on Saturday. It's part of the province's $40 million plan to tackle homelessness across the province. U.S. alcohol is being put back on the shelves in the province's liquor stores. The Saskatchewan Liquor and Gaming Authority says American alcohol products will be available for purchase effective immediately. Any existing U.S. stock can also be sold, and orders can be made to bring new product in. SLGA says this gives customers the option to choose U.S. products or consider alternatives. The drinks were first pulled from store shelves back in March in response to sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods by U.S. President Donald Trump. SLGA is still encouraging people to support Saskatchewan and Canadian drinks, especially while the federal government's 25% tariff on U.S. alcohol remains in effect. Another big roadblock has emerged in the talks aimed at ending the Canada Post contract dispute. Canada Post is rejecting a framework for binding arbitration that was proposed by the union representing 55,000 postal workers. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers says Canada Post is refusing to negotiate. Canada Post says binding arbitration would take too long, up to 18 months. The Crown Corporation wants to have part-time workers on the weekend, which the union opposes. Canada Post is also looking to put its offer for a 14% wage hike over 4 years directly to members, bypassing union leadership. The union calls that interference. Smoke is blanketing the province. The picturesque scenery of the river in Saskatoon has a heavy haze that is making breathing difficult for many. The same can be said for Regina, where a simple walk around Wascana Lake is greeted with thick, smoky conditions. Halina Mahalik will be back after the break to give us the conditions from around the province. Stick around. U.S. President Donald Trump is defending his decision to send the National Guard and Marines to Los Angeles, where people are protesting federal immigration raids. Sharon Pratchler has more.
California's governor has filed an emergency motion asking a federal judge to block National Guard members and Marines from getting involved in immigration raids. President Donald Trump ordered 4,700 of the troops to move into California to protect ICE agents going after what he calls illegal immigrants. About half of these troops are supposed to take positions around 2 federal buildings in downtown Los Angeles. All of this against the wishes of Governor Gavin Newsom.
This theatrical display of toughness by a president of the United States who's unhinged and has now crossed a red line in this country.
The streets of LA have been relatively quiet for the past couple of days after a weekend of sporadic rioting. There have been protests against the immigration raids and some confrontations between demonstrators and police. But the mayor says it's nothing officers can't handle by themselves. In fact, Trump took credit for that calm today and at the same time painted a picture of chaos that might justify further federal intervention.
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see, but I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible.
But while Trump is pushing the boundaries of presidential and federal powers, some serious issues are being raised by Congress. What powers will those troops have? Normally, U.S. law doesn't allow them to get involved in civilian policing. And where will the money come from? $134 million worth. All of that was part of a heated exchange at a congressional committee today.
The chaos is the bait, and the switch is a constitutional crisis and power grab. Trump created this political distraction to divide us and keep our focus away from his policies.
You asked about the situation in Los Angeles, and we believe ICE agents should be allowed to be safe in doing their operations, and we have deployed National Guard and the Marines to protect them in the execution of their duties.
For Trump, the heavy emphasis on the military power he commands continues with a speech to troops at Fort Bragg in North Carolina this afternoon and a massive military parade that's set to shut down a large part of Washington, D.C. this weekend. Sharon Pratchler, CBC News, Washington.
Halina Mahalik is now in with a look at the weather. And Halina, it was nice really early in the morning, and then the smoke completely converged across the province, and it got pretty bad, didn't it?
It really did, Dan. Here, even in Saskatoon, as soon as I woke up, I could really smell the smoke, and you can really see it in the air. Let's take a look at our air quality advisories that are in place for Saskatchewan. Much of the province has an air quality warning due to the strength of the smoke. Our major cities, Saskatoon and Regina, and all of its surrounding areas and extending into the north, air quality statements are in effect for the Air Ronge and Pelican Narrows areas. Because of this, we are seeing a higher risk of wildfires in south and central Saskatchewan, and we have had a lot of days. It's the 4th day of rainfall in a row for northern Saskatchewan, causing that chance of wildfire danger to diminish a little bit in those areas. Wednesday, we will see the smoke continue for southern Saskatchewan, and into Thursday, it'll still be present in central Saskatchewan, and of course continues to be quite strong in the north, especially areas around Buffalo Narrows and Air Ronge. Tuesday evening, there is a 30 to 60% chance of rainfall with the risk of showers for northern Saskatchewan. So we're seeing another day of rainfall continue for the area. They could get anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall throughout today. Wednesday, the chance of rain continues for the north as well as for parts of southern Saskatchewan. A 30 to 60% chance for many areas around Swift Current. Thursday, we are seeing another chance of rainfall, especially in the southwest. Areas around Swift Current continue to get some rainfall. As we get into Friday, that risk goes towards central Saskatchewan, and areas in the northern Greenbelt along Prince Albert may experience some of those showers. Tuesday evening, it was a bit of a breezy day, especially for central Saskatchewan, with winds gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour. The rest of the week, winds are dying down. Wednesday, we will see up to 30 kilometers an hour wind gusts in the southwest around Swift Current, where that rain will be falling. Thursday as well in the Swift Current area, up to 40 kilometers an hour wind gusts. We aren't going to be seeing much extreme heat anymore in the province. Wednesday daytime highs around 25 degrees, and Thursday as well we'll be seeing highs of around 25 degrees. As we get to Friday, things are cooling down a little bit, and we will see temperatures returning just above seasonal for this time of year, with temperatures, Dan, at just above 20 degrees. But we are seeing much rainfall, which is very good for all this smoke that we're seeing.
For the smoke to keep everything down, and hopefully everybody's gardens and lawns and that sort of thing too.
Yeah, for sure. The gardens definitely need it as well.
All right, thanks, Helena.
Thanks, Dan.
A new fantasy novel written and illustrated by a Saskatchewan couple parallels current and past events in Ukraine. And a portion of every book they sell will go to the Canada-Ukraine Foundation's Aid for Artists project. They join the Morning Edition's Adam Hunter to talk about the book.
The idea really started to rattle around in my head in the sort of like 2013, 2014 kind of area. The Maidan uprising had happened in Ukraine, and the social media, of course, had been around for a long time, but it was something that really struck me that there were so many people sharing their direct stories of what was happening in protests, brutality that was occurring on the streets, and that really stuck with me. And the idea kind of like simmered for a very long time, and Audra had created this fantasy world for her comic, and part of it had this tie-in culturally with Ukraine, with a lot of like inspiration in the names and the architecture, and so I kind of wanted to write something that resonated with those two pieces.
Audra, tell us about this world.
So the world is for my silent graphic novel, Flight 19. It's sort of a steampunk fantasy world where you've got people who have animalistic features and even some people who have biomechanical augments, so like robot parts. And when I created the world for the comic, it only features a few locations, but I ended up making an entire world map. One of which being Savora, which is the Ukrainian sort of inspired continent that Crown of Thorns takes place on.
So what inspired you to create this world, Audra?
Well, the whole project started with just pictures. I have a background in visual art and theater. And so for me, storytelling is very visual. Whenever I'm drawing pictures, I'm always thinking of stories with them. And so yeah, it started with pictures, and then I developed a story. I started knitting it together and developing the entire 10 chapter compilation.
But in front, took a funny hop. Marchand a chance, scores!
The Florida Panthers scored early and often Monday night in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Edmonton Oilers lost their composure. The blood boiled over and the gloves came off, and in the end, Florida won 6-1 and takes a 2-1 series lead. Game 4 is Thursday night here on CBC. We'll be back after the break. The Saskatchewan Roughriders were back on the field in preparation for this weekend's game in Hamilton. And there was a new face on the field. The recently signed running back Kadeem Carey was on the field as he was released by the Toronto Argonauts at the end of training camp. Carey will provide some depth at the position after AJ Ouellette left last week's game. The 2024 Division All-Star says he's always wanted to end up in the green and white.
The first thing that was on my mind was Sask. So if I would go anywhere, it would be here. So I was just kind of just taking a deep breath, letting everything play out, talking to the fam and seeing if I wanted to go, do this again. So it had to be the right spot. It had to be, the right team and the right opportunity. And I feel like this is it. I mean, they were one game away to be in a big show. So I feel like they're ready.
Shoot, we talked about it. I said I wouldn't be surprised. And, it turns out that he's here and wants to be here. And he's coming in humbly. He understands the situation. And we got to see him today working his tail off.
Ouellette was a limited participant in practice with a head injury, as was defensive back Roland Milligan. The Riders will look to win their first road game this season Saturday night in Hamilton. Helena Mahalik is back with another look at weather. Helena, how are things looking?
We're seeing a mix of smoke, sun, rain, a little bit of everything, Dan. Let's take a look at the forecast for the city of Regina. Wednesday, there is that 30% chance of rain, which will hopefully stop some of that smoke. The rest of the week, the sun is out, a little bit of a breeze throughout the rest of the work week. Saturday, there is a chance for some more rain with a risk of thunderstorm, but the rest of the week, temperatures around seasonal, and the sun will be out all throughout the week. Next week into Tuesday, another chance of that rain, and overnight lows are above seasonal for this time of year, which is good news for the gardens. Saturday, Saskatoon, it's seasonal for this time of year. We're seeing temperatures just slightly above that, hovering around the 25-degree mark, and the sun will be out all throughout the week. As we get into the weekend, there is a chance of rain, which will taper off Sunday, but into next work week could come back. A few breezy days for Saskatoon as well, and overnight lows will also be above seasonal for this time of year, and widespread smoke is forecasted, Dan, for tomorrow for both Saskatoon and Regina.
All right. Thanks, Helena.
Thanks, Dan.
And that's it for us for now. For more news, anytime, head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC YouTube channel. And don't forget to download the CBC News app. Of course, that's on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks for watching, everybody.